This is a video telling humanity about itself, from itself, to itself. And I hope that if nothing else happens, some of humanity can get something from it. It is folly to think that a human being is inherently valuable because they aren't. That is a myth that a lot of people are born with, that human life is valuable, human life has inherent value. Human life has the capacity to be infinitely valuable. That is 100% true. However, inherently, just coming out of the womb, just being a byproduct of sex and biological functions and being incubated for a period of months called a gestation period, coming out, coming through some sort of birth canal or through some other means into the world to interface with it. By that being alone, a lot of creatures do that. And a lot of creatures that are on this planet have a lot more inherent value than a human being. And that's what this whole channel is going to be dedicated to. It is not only a commentary on humanity, but it's also to reflect a mirror to let humanity know that you are indeed the lowest of the lowest of creatures. And you may say, well, that's just because you've been through bad things. Maybe you've had, abuse or something bad happened to you. Well, I've been through bad things like anybody else has. Yes, people have transgressed against me. They have done, or at least tried to do, a lot of bad things to me. That is the case. But to be honest with you, because of who I am, how I am, and I guess maybe luck, fortune, or blessings, however you want to describe it, I actually haven't had that bad of treatment from human beings, largely because they can't do a lot of the things that they try to do. And I'll go into reasons for that later. But this is not coming from necessarily a place of bitterness, although I must admit bitterness is a part of it. It's only natural to feel bitter or slighted or angry when you faced injustice or whatever. But no, to be quite honest with you, this is another reason why I feel as though I am qualified to give this commentary, because I'm someone that has, through whatever means, whatever blessings you want to say, I can say that my spirit and my mind and my body is intact. I am one of the few people who have lasted this long in life and have not been destroyed by the world. I made it a point to not be destroyed by the world when I was a child, and I'm going to continue on that path. And hopefully, I'll be 100 years old and still never be destroyed, either eternally or physically, by any of you. Now, we're going to talk about human nature. And there's so many different things that makes humans unique, and not in a good way. And these are things that you don't think about. Human beings have more intelligence than animals, so to speak. They were given, if you believe in the Bible, when human beings were created, God gave mankind dominion over the earth. And in a way, that is true. No one could even deny that. There has to be some entity somewhere that has given human beings their place. Because if it came down to it and human beings had to compete or run the earth off their own merit, they would not be able to do so. Now, you may say, why is that? Aren't human beings more intelligent than a bear, than a crab, than a worm? Well, not really. If you really get down to it, yes, a worm may not be able to come together and make an iPhone. A bear may not be able to, write, a math textbook for a school. Yes, human beings can do that way better than a lot of the animals and plants or whatever else may be out there. However, a human being inherently has a predatory nature. All human beings come with this. All of them they come out the womb that way. Whether they're abused as children or not, whether they get trampled on by the world or not, every human being is inherently born with a need to cause suffering and a predatory nature. That is a fact. It doesn't matter what gender they are, what race they are, what socioeconomic class they are. And I'll get into that in a little bit. A human being is the only creature on this planet that can be both predatory and cowardly at the same time. I would even argue, I would always think to myself, the way human beings are, just the way I've noticed them over the years and dealing with them, human beings are extremely cowardly, but they're predatory, or at least they want to be. Now, I wouldn't say, me personally, that human beings are really predators, because most of them can't be, because they don't have the traits that you see in other predatory animals. And a good example of that is cowardice. How are you going to be a predator? How does that look for a lion to say, I have a predatory nature, I have fangs and fur and claws and all this other type of stuff. I have all these things built in me because I have a need to destroy, devour, and eat the meat so that I can sustain myself. But yet at the same time, how is that lion going to go out into the Serengeti or the safari or whatever, see a gazelle, and be scared to chase after it? Or be afraid that the gazelle might, use his horns against it to the point where it starves to death. That's how a human being is. See, a human being cannot be a predator, most of them, because they're too cowardly to be so. Human beings, by and large, do not like intelligence. Yes, they say they like smart people. They like to sound smart. But if you look throughout history and throughout media and all around the world, whether it be nerds in school getting beat up and put in the lockers, or people who are intelligent saying they can't find dates, or even if you want to look throughout history, there's been countless dictators and all types of, tyrants and stuff. And what is one of the first things that dictators do? One of the first things that dictators tend to do when they want to take over society is kill the intellectuals. That's one of the main things that they do. If you look into Pol Pot or any of the, Jim Jones, or all these people who have influence and are so-called evil, one of the main things, if you notice, that they attack are the people that they deem who are intelligent. With that being said, human beings really, really love to cause suffering, and they have a predatory nature. However, they seem to really, really hate intelligence, whether it be through envy because someone is more intelligent than them, or just in general, a collective envy for the intellectuals in society, the nerds, Revenge of the Nerds, all that stuff. And that's really mind-boggling to me. Because even animals, I watched, this special not too long ago about wild boars. And wild boars even value their intelligent over their stupid. And what I mean by that is, if it's like a dangerous area, or there's an area where they don't know what it is, what wild boars will do is they'll let the stupid ones, quote unquote, go out first just to test the area, or they'll let the stupid ones eat something first to do something before they'll let, maybe the more higher ranking boars or the smarter ones or whatever you want to call them go out and take that risk. But you notice with human beings is usually quite the opposite. First of all, human beings hate any type of humanity that's being shown at a higher level. Humanity is always going to go for the lowest of the low when it comes to what they're attracted to, what they like, and what they relate to. But the problem is that you can't hate intelligence and fight against it tooth and nail every second you get, and also collectively want to be predators. Even prey, like the wild boars, and I guess wild boars might predatorize some animals. I don't know if they're completely, herbivores, omnivores, I don't know. But they are prey to something. And even those animals value intelligence, and they don't even have to necessarily strategize to get or to predatorize. Now, I would argue being a predator would require more strategy than being prey. There is the added thing of being on the offense. But for the most part, this is something that I noticed, and it's something that is very contradictory. And this also goes further into, well, a human being has a predatory nature, inherently speaking. No one can argue that. But they don't have the ability to really be predators, most of them. Human beings also are not, and I repeat, are not selfish creatures. They do not want everything that they can have for themselves. That is a myth about human beings. Human beings will forego food, water, shelter, love, comfort. They'll give up everything if it comes down to hate or ego. Human beings are not selfish. They're not materialistic. They don't want everything for themselves. They're not unfair in that sense where they just want to hog everything and want the best for themselves and want everyone else to suffer. No, that is not the case. There are plenty of instances where you can look at people and say, well, why did they throw away all that money just to do that? Why did this person go through all of that when they could have done a really simpler option that would have been better for them and everyone around them? Why would this human being hurt themselves just to do X, Y, and Z to someone else? Well, because human beings are inherently born to hate themselves. That is the natural state of man. They come out the womb that way. Every time a woman gives birth, she's giving birth to her enemy. Every time a man marries a woman, he's marrying his enemy, because human beings come out the womb that way. There does not have to be a reason. You're dealing with a creature that has to cause suffering to others, and if it couldn't, if there was nothing more than a mirror and a chair and them in the whole wide world, the world would still be full of hate and self-hatred. Man is inherently designed to hate itself unless there are other things in place to balance that. With that being said, how are you going to be a predator and hate yourself? You have to have a degree of confidence to be a predator. In order for that jaguar to chase after a rabbit or whatever it's chasing out, it has to have some degree of confidence that it can set a goal, chase a rabbit, go get it and eat it. Most human beings don't even have that. And if they do have it, their parents will try to make sure they beat it out of them before they even get into this world. Human beings are the only creatures that actively destroy all of their offspring. There are animals that do eat their offspring. There are animals that abandon their offspring and reject their offspring. Oh yes, that happens, but not to the same ratio that human beings do. I don't know of any creature I've ever heard of that destroys its own offspring the way humans do. I don't know any other creature that not only does that, but promotes the lowest or the low functioning or the, if you want to say the bad ones, the dumb ones, the slow ones, the fat ones, whatever the ones are that have the least chance of survival. Human beings are the only creatures that can actively promote the low, the weak, the failures, and cast away the strong or the intelligent or whatever is needed to survive in this world. And another thing, you can't be a predator if you're hate and ego driven. In order to be a predator, you actually do have to be selfish, because a predator, first of all, if you want to talk about animals, they don't have refrigerators and, big grocery stores and all this other kind of stuff. They can just go at their leisure and eat. In order to be a predator, you do have to be selfish, and you do have to say, if I don't devour this animal or chase this, I'm not going to survive and live. You see, a human being, if it came down to it, and it came down to if they were starving to death or you offer them a sandwich, but in order for them to get the sandwich, they would have to be kind and nice and not cause any suffering to anyone, they would choose to starve to death 10 times out of 10. You cannot be a predator if you value hate more than eating. You cannot be a predator if you value causing suffering or harm or damaging someone else's self-esteem and ego more than your own happiness, health, and safety. Because predators don't do that. Predators don't go around telling antelopes that they're fat and that they're stupid in order for them to be able to feel better about themselves and replace the fact that they're not eating it. But that's the nature of a human being. So if a human being is not only soft, squishy, doesn't have talons and scales or whatever all these other animals and creatures have, and if they're fundamentally inferior, then that is 100% true, that God must have given Adam dominion over the earth, because there is no way he would have it on his own.